Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're diving into the latest Alpha 2 Bard showcase from Ashes of Creation. And I have to say, that was quite a lengthy stream. We got a ton of information, but also we missed out on some key details that many were eagerly anticipating, I have to say, myself included. This leaves us wondering, has scope creep taken a hold of this project? But enough of this preamble, this talk. Let's get right into today's episode. So first up, let's talk about the Bard class. From what we've seen, the gameplay looks really solid. The new armor set looked really good, and it was great to hear that it was in-game obtainable and not a paid cosmetic. That's really cool. The Bard's dances, songs, and other abilities are visually impressive. The skill tree seems to be intriguing, and it does seem to have some potential for future development. I think they even talked about that in the stream a bit. Though it is clear that some of the animations or the skills are still work in progress, or they have been tweaked, or they want to be tweaked. I think Crescendo, or that big Bard ability with the dragon that came through and burned the ground and stuff, that's something that they actually showed an early iteration of, so we can kind of see the progression. So I'm interested to see what those other abilities look like, and they really want to be able to tell a story almost with those abilities. That's the goal. The Bard class or archetype appears to be in a good spot for being a frontline buffer and debuffer, with traits that allow for quick entry and exit into combat, right? Into and out of combat, which is cool to see as a utility type player, right? You want to get into the action, buff or debuff, and then get out and continue, almost from the back of your group, right? So that was cool to see, and the directionality and the control of that one ability that they were showing was really cool to see too. It seems like it'll be a valuable utility class, and it sort of reminds me of two classes from one of my favorite MMOs of the past, Final Fantasy XI. It reminds me a lot of the Bard and Dancer classes from that game mixed together, where the Bard had its ballads and instruments that it used to perform, buffs, debuffs, even damage, and the Dancer had the same, right? Self buffs, group buffs within the form of dances. So this Bard in Ashes definitely combines those two in my mind. Moving on through the stream, we did get to see finally in game the Dunir dwarves. They look pretty cool. Someone like myself who's eager to main one of these dwarves, it was exciting to see them finally make an appearance in a live stream in game. The small quirks and animations really matched what I imagined them to be for the race, from their jumping to the legs when they're running and stuff like that. All those little animations, those key little details that not everybody might have picked up on, really looked cool to me as someone who wants to main a dwarf. However, we didn't get a close-up view of them as they weren't the primary character in this month's live stream, so I'm sad to see that. And we didn't see any facial hair. I don't think they had a beard or anything on this dwarf. So I don't think we've seen any facial hair other than the pyre, I want to say. So I do want to highlight that. Hopefully we do get to see that soon, and hopefully we get to mess around with that in the character creator, but more on that later in the video. But I'm sure we'll get more details soon on the different races and the character creator. We also got a preview of how elite mobs will be identified compared to regular mobs. So we saw Intrepid has introduced a star system on some mobs to signify how challenging they might be to your group. This will be one way for us to understand what kind of threat we're up against and how we can deal with that encounter. There were some other visual cues, like I know there was like an axe or something above one of the named mobs, as well as one of these stars. So there are different visual cues that we as the player can pick up on to see what kind of a threat we're taking on or about to take on. With all this good and positive feedback, there does come some bad, maybe some constructive criticism, right? Unfortunately, there were some notable absences in the live stream this month. We didn't get an Alpha 2 date or any news about the character creator. A lot of people in the community were very, very optimistic that we would get one or both, or at least some information on one or both. We were expecting to have access to the character creator before Alpha 2. This was something that last live stream was hinted at, that is almost ready, that we should get a release on, and even we hinted that maybe an Alpha 2 date release was close on the horizon. Given the Q3 2024 timeline we were provided, the lack of an Alpha 2 update is puzzling. Especially with the rumors circulating after this live stream that there is a delay until October of this year now for Alpha 2. And again, I want to stress these are just rumors that are circulating within the community, out there on the interwebs. They're in the ether, right? These are just rumors. The upcoming AMA with Steven on August the 16th should share some more info, shed some light on this, but the delay in information is raising a few concerns throughout the community and for myself in general as well. This brings us to a controversial topic of scope creep. During the live stream, we heard details about various systems, skills, and even musical instruments. Some of these seemed like they were either new ideas or improvements discussed for future use within the team at Intrepid, or that some of these ideas were possibly raised through the community, through various content, feedback, so on and so forth. This raises concerns that the team might be focusing too much on future features rather than the current state of Alpha 2. And one of those features, or a few of those topics, were centered around questions at the end of the live stream, at least for myself, right? There were some questions about Bard's abilities to provide a long-term buff outside of combat. So there's a bard sitting at a tavern and they are able to play a musical instrument that would buff you, another player, outside of combat, right? So let's say I'm a bard sitting at a tavern and I have the ability to buff you with a speed bonus for, let's say, an hour, right? You can run faster for an hour if you stay out of combat or what have you, right? And I apply this buff to you at the tavern and you have the ability to then pay me whatever you think that buff was worth, or I charge you whatever that buff was worth. So there was a little bit of discussion around that, that you can tell that the team thought about or talked about, and Steven's body language really this stream provided a lot of insight for me, that there were maybe some topics that he didn't want to talk about, or that they had talked about, that might have been topics that have been discussed internally that didn't go so well or are not going so well. Another thing was instruments just to play in general, that everyone can play. This was again something that I think was addressed internally at Intrepid. You could tell that there was a conversation that was being had by the way Steven answered the questions. And again, I'm a very visual person, so seeing Steven kind of a little bit off his game this live stream really tells me that one, they're probably working their butts off, which kudos to them as always for working hard, but two, that there are some topics that are being discussed that are somewhat maybe worrisome, or out of scope for certain things that might reveal potential scope creep or things of that nature. Scope creep can obviously lead to delays and missed deadlines, as a team might get bogged down in details that push back progress, right? Progress on the current state or current iteration, current projects. While it's crucial to have a well rounded vision, there's a risk of losing focus on immediate goals and deadlines, which I hope is not happening. I don't think it is. It is, but like I said, there are concerns out in the community. It's a delicate balance between detailed development and sticking on a roadmap. So that leaves us with, when can we expect the character creator and Alpha 2? I think those are the two biggest questions that remain left unanswered from this month's or last month's live stream. I hope we see the character creator within the next few weeks. Ideally, for me personally, a goal for that would be to see it before the AMA with Steven, or right after the AMA with Steven. Missing this mark would be a significant blow not only to the community, but also to Intrepid's credibility. If Alpha 2 does get delayed to Q4, it's important that Intrepid communicates this honestly, transparently. We need to know why and when the delay is happening and for what reason, right? I say what reason based solely on three things that we know from the past two live streams that are happening, right? We have character creator Alpha 2 date and the sale of Alpha 2 access keys being reopened. When I say that I personally would love to know of a delay, and the reason of the delay is, I'll give you two examples. A good example is that the development cycle or the development process dictated that there be a delay for Alpha 2 based on X, Y, and Z factors. To me, a bad reason for a delay, or a negative reason, or a constructive criticism area that I would call out, is if Intrepid is delaying Alpha 2 to provide information and launch the sales for Alpha 2 keys. To me, that is not a valid reason to delay a benchmark or a milestone or a deliverable to us, the community, the consumer, who have already bought into Alpha 2, based on you wanting to open up and get more people involved in Alpha 2. I don't see the value add to delay the game or to delay Alpha 2 just so that we can outline a payment structure and how to go about it and why and all of that, just to reopen sales. So for me, I think it boils down to a valid reason versus a not valid reason to the development of the game. The AMA on August 16th is our next big chance to get clarity on these topics. I'm hoping it provides the answers we need without the need for further delays. So I'm really hoping we get our hands on character creator. I'm really hoping that we do get a solid Alpha 2 concrete date for launch of Alpha 2. And I hope that they're ready, right? And again, I really hope that delays don't happen based off of potential future sales of keys. All that said, I remain a huge supporter of this project and its vision. It's hard not to feel concerned, and that's a valid point and a valid feeling, right? The hype around Ashes of Creation has been immense. And these last few live streams and these last few months, I feel like the hype has been building more and more and more. But the recent reveals haven't quite lived up to expectations. Yes, the Bard was great. Yes, the tech showcase was great. But I don't know if we're matching the amount of hype that is being built around this Q3 of 2024 hype. The biggest thing for me and many others is honesty and trust. If delays are necessary, we need to know why. I'm looking forward to the AMA and hope for good news. Regardless of the bumps along the way, I'm here for the ride. That's what we're all here for, I think, in the end, right? And we know that every ride has its ups and downs, its enjoyable and not so enjoyable moments. And I'm hoping this leads to something great in the end. As always, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications so you don't miss any updates. Also, all of our socials are linked in the video description, so go ahead, give us a follow. TikTok, Instagram, all of that good stuff. We're here covering Ashes of Creations. We also do other content on Kick, various streams on TikTok, and so on and so forth, guys. I appreciate you as always, and we'll see you on the next one.